we need to have discipline. We have to learn discipline. As adults, we need to discipline ourselves, not to yell at our children often. So our toughest moments are when we're disciplining ourselves to discipline them in an appropriate manner.
You're listening to the Mindful Mama podcast, episode number 153. Today we're talking about how to be a happier parent with KJ Dell'Antonia. Welcome to the Mindful Mama podcast. Here it's about becoming a less irritable, more joyful parent. At Mindful Mama, we know that you cannot give what you do not have, and when you have calm and peace within, then you can give it to your children. I'm your host, Hunter Clarke-FIELDS Mindful Mama Mentor. I help smart, thoughtful moms stay calm so they can have strong, connected relationships with their children. I've been practicing mindfulness for over 20 years. I'm the creator of the Mindful Parenting course, and I'm the author of the upcoming new book, Raising Good Humans, a mindful guide to breaking the cycle of reactive parenting and raising kind, confident kids. Hey, welcome back, dear listener. If you're new, big welcome to you. I am so glad you are here. In just a moment, I'm going to be sitting down with KJ Dell'Antonia, and she's the author of How to Be a Happier Parent, which is a great book. And she's the former editor of the New York Times Motherload blog. And she writes about parenting for the New York Times and other publications. And this book is fabulous. I'm going to talk to KJ about some things that are going to help us be happier as parents. Like, who doesn't want that, right? This is for moms. This is for dads. This is for people dealing with kids. So, if you're finding that you're constantly irritable, you want to enjoy parenthood more, then this is really the place for you. And this is the place KJ Dell'Antonia found herself in, and me too. So, we talk about some of the answers to frustrating struggles like chores, discipline, screen time, and more. So I invite you to come join me at the table as I sit down with KJ and talk about, we have this fun conversation about how to get through the toughest part of parenting and find yourself happier on the other side, right? So talk about discipline and the idea of looking at discipline as teaching, just like we did in our just 2 episodes ago in How to Discipline, episode number 151. We talk about why you should want your kids to screw up on your watch. Pretty interesting. And we start off with a conversation about activities and sports and how they really are actually more demanding these days. And before we dive in, I just want to let you know that if you are irritated and frustrated and you want parenting to be better, then I have an awesome resource for you right now. We are having the Mindful Parenting Free Training Week, and it is happening. It's happening right now. So you should join up. And when you do, you can get access to the private group where we have all our recordings, and we're going to be talking about why your kids don't listen to you and how your brain undermines your parenting. And we're going to talk about how to create cooperation, willing cooperation. Pretty awesome. And the Mindful Parenting course is going to be open for registration, just opens twice a year. So hop on that. You can learn more about the free training at mindfulparentingcourse.com/free training. And if you want to join the Mindful Parenting course, which I'm telling you is pretty amazing because I just made a change where all of my alumni can join the live course whenever they want, and they can join the live coaching calls. So it's kind of like joining for life. It's really quite a steal for what you get as far as continued support year after year. So learn more, check it out at mindfulparentingcourse.com. And now, join me at the table as I talk to KJ Dell'Antonia about how to be a happier parent. KJ, thanks so much for coming on the Mindful Mama podcast.
Thanks for having me.
As I told you, I'm loving your book, How to Be a Happier Parent. And it's a lot of fun. And you cover a lot of things in this, all the tough stuff, like
a lot of them.
Like chores,
yeah,
screens, siblings, discipline,
And sports and activities, it was interesting because I guess like my kids aren't that into sports and activities so I was thinking like, oh, like chores, that's hard. Like discipline, yeah. Like screens, this is hard. Siblings, oh, the sports and activities, like, so what made you include sports and activities in there? Like what?
Oh, that's so funny. And also, like, somebody asked me recently, she said, well, do you have anything about like the tough conversations we have to have? And I was like, no, that never occurred to me. So I guess same thing. I included sports and activities because to me, in watching other parents and other families, putting more than a reasonable amount of time into your child's sports and activities seems to me to be a consistent route to sometimes unhappiness and sometimes just a feeling of like your life being off balance. And I am somebody with 4 travel hockey playing kids. So I see a lot of the sports side of it, but I intentionally set out to I talked to parents of, dance families, lots of soccer. Boy, if I think hockey's crazy, soccer seems to see hockey and raise it a couple of crazy points. And I talk to a lot of music parents, and it's not so much, it makes us happy to see our kids doing things that make them happy, but there's a real culture around sports and activities that's not about making kids happy. It's about making people money. So getting caught up in that sort of, yay, we're going to learn to play violin. But that means, it used to mean like you took a lesson with a violin teacher. Now it's almost always Suzuki, and it's in a music center, and the music center wants your child to have their lesson every week, and they need to play in a group, and, they need to maybe audition for this state thing and that national thing and this local thing. And it just becomes nothing simple.
You said in the book, like it really has changed.
It's gamed up. Yeah,
it's changed. Have totally it's different from when we were kids, because we kind of think, okay, it was fun. It'll be fun for my kids, but It's different. The stakes are higher these days.
It is different, and kids are often talked to in a different way about it. The people that lead it, if you ask them, if you said, is this meant to be fun? They'd be like, well, of course it's meant to be fun. But, they don't talk to the kids as though this is a fun activity that they're participating in. They talk as though it needs to be like the top of their. I've had somebody say to my kid, well, if you can't do hockey and music, you have to choose. And they're like, 11. It's like, no, I do choose. I choose not you. That's what I choose. On behalf of my child, I choose something else. Yeah, everybody feels like, oh, if it's your passion, you have to put everything into it. And it's just kind of like, it doesn't have to be a passion. It's soccer, Like, yeah.
It's interesting because I get so frustrated with that because for me, it really hit home. I remember really influential book for me, speaking of parenting books, was Simplicity Parenting. And I read it when my daughter was young, and I really it made so much sense to me that like kids' brains are pretty chaotic, right? When they're pre-adolescent, and they need that free play and that unstructured play so that they can learn how to organize the world in their life.
Right.
And then around 10, 11, etc., 12 plus, and then getting into adolescence, kids' brains are like, they need that structure because like their lives are kind of crazy. And that structure is really like helpful and grounding for them. So they always got so frustrated that, that it's like, oh, you have to start gymnastics when you're 5 or soccer when you're 5.
Or you're never going to the Olympics. And typically, the right answer to that is, he's never going to the Olympics. Like,
yeah.
And so, so there's this push. Everything starts earlier. Everything. If you don't start playing hockey or skiing or playing the violin by the time you're 3, you're never going to amount to anything. And you just want to say, amount to what? Like, I was hoping to amount to somebody who knew how to play the violin. That's,
I would love that. I want like a violin player friend who can like come to my house and can be like, let's whip out your fiddle. Like, help you fun. I'm dying to have that friend in my life.
There just aren't that many things left that people are expected, or kids are expected to do just for fun. And there's just, you can see it. It's a visible, objective push to start everything earlier and do it more frequently, more than just a couple times a week. And it's taking away the kids' opportunity to find their own things. It's taking away their opportunity to have that simple time and as they get to be teenagers, they don't get the downtime. And the amount of stuff that spreads out into is extraordinary. I mean, the first chapter in my book is mornings, because mornings are really
Yeah.
Mornings are awful, right? I mean, they just are. Everybody has to be somewhere earlier than anybody wants to be anywhere, and it's typically tough. But one of the reasons mornings are tough comes back to sports and activities, because when we fill up our schedules as adults, as kids, and as teenagers, what happens is we get home at night and we don't feel like we're off the clock until like 9 or 10, when we finally shut our laptop as adults, or finish our homework, or, get out of play practice on top of volleyball practice as kids. And so, our brains desperately just want to Snapchat or Netflix or read or, lay on the floor and bounce a ball into the air. And we're going to take that time. Like, we're going to find it. Nobody lets that time go. And so then, it's 11:30 and you got to be up at 6, and that's it. So much for getting enough sleep, so much for having a good morning. And then the next day, the whole thing just starts all over again. Mm-hmm. So that those sports and activities, when they get a little out of hand, they really crawl into every aspect of our family lives in a way that our parents typically just did not experience. I had this great conversation with somebody who played soccer, and she played all through high school, and then played, I don't remember if she played college or not, but she played all through high school, pretty serious, like varsity soccer or something. And she called her mom and she said, my friend asked me to ask you, did you ever go to my practices? Mm-hmm. And her mom was like, you played soccer? That's it, because she rode her bike to the practice. She went up and then I think at the end, oh yeah, I get it. Yeah, it was just like,
no, but that's brilliant.
It was a huge part of this student's life, but her parents just let it be a huge part of her life. It wasn't a huge part of their lives.
It was her own thing. That's crazy. That's something I talk to my clients and my students about. Like, you have permission not to watch your kids' practices. That's a great time for you to go for a walk, to do your own thing, to sure, watch a game, but why watch a practice? Let it be the child's own thing. And it sounds like you from reading How to Be a Happier Parent, it sounds like you're advocating for parents to protect their own time and to protect
very much so. I talked about this from the kid angle and the better for the kids angle, and it is, but it's so much better for us if we don't get too emotionally involved. I mean, it's better for them. They don't need to emotionally involved in their sporting careers at age 11. Yeah, you don't need to watch them practice. Honestly, you don't need to go to all their games. I mean, I took my child to a hockey tournament this weekend. They played 7 games in 3 days. I was present for all of those games, what with, the whole needing to drive him and everything. But I had knitting. I had a podcast. I mean,
I would not have watched 7 soccer games. I'd have to be like a Zen master to watch.
I would be a zombie by the end of that. I mean, I do love to watch him play. He's good. He's having a great time out there. It's lovely. And I actually have grown to really enjoy the sport because I've spent a lot of time watching it. But I'm not just going to do that. Sometimes I go to Starbucks and, get some work time. Sometimes I sit in the car with my laptop. Sometimes I watch Marie Kondo on Netflix. And I have said to them, if you're playing because I'm watching, you're not playing for the right reason.
Yeah.
Like that should not be your goal. Sometimes I'm watching, sometimes I'm not.
Yeah, with my daughter's horseback riding lessons, it's only like half an hour once a week because it's a very expensive sport, right? But it's
I got that one. I got that sport in my life too. So.
Yeah, sometimes I'm there and sometimes I go for a run, and I want her to just do it for her. But so yeah, okay. So create some boundaries around these sports. Create some boundaries for the sake of your kids, for the sake of you, for everyone to be happier. Don't let it intrude into overwhelm your whole life. It's not worth that. basically.
No, it really isn't. And kids can, love something and be passionate about it and be great at it. And maybe, do it at whatever high level that they want to, not that you do, without your doing more than helping them sort of do the things they want to do.
Yeah. Are you frustrated with parenting? Do you want to practice conscious, compassionate parenting, but you don't know how? It's not easy, and there's no roadmap for this. Until now. I'm Hunter Clarke-Fields, creator of the Mindful Parenting course, and I know how frustrating it is because I've been there. I struggled as a young mom, and when I found myself yelling and triggered by my child, I knew there had to be a better way, and there is. Mindful parenting is different from other parenting trainings. They don't tell you that all of that good advice is as good as useless when our internal stress response is triggered. Mindful parenting teaches you research-based tools and practices to reduce your stress response so that you can respond rather than react. And it teaches you exactly what to say so that you can create willing cooperation from your child. You can learn more and enroll at mindfulparentingcourse.com, and you can join us for a free live training coming up soon where you'll learn why your kids don't listen to you, how your brain undermines your parenting, and how to create cooperative kids without losing your temper. Sign up now at mindfulparentingcourse.com/free training. That's mindfulparentingcourse.com/free training. I'll see you there. So you have 4 kids.
I do.
And I definitely want to speak to you about siblings and things like that. And I want to speak to you about discipline, but I'm curious about what was it like? You're obviously passionate enough about parenting to write this wonderful book. I love the book. How were you raised? Did you have siblings? How did your parents parent you?
I did not have siblings. I'm an only child. I grew up in a really loving 2-parent household. Both my parents worked. They took me everywhere, which is the advantage to having just one child. So, and I watched them. They were, it was the 70s, the 80s. They were working hard. They were advancing in their careers. We went from sort of not having very much money to having a nice lifestyle. And I was there for all of that, watch my dad lose jobs and get jobs and just sort of, I don't know, I felt like an interest. I was a part of their adult life. And yet I also had, my own thing. I mean, I liked doing theater and plays and certainly they came when I was in things, but they didn't come to rehearse. Yeah, things were just different. I mean, you had to get your own rides places and stuff. It was, people parented differently back then. I remember they both liked to play tennis. And so as a child, and especially as an only child with nobody to play with, I spent a lot of time, sitting very bored in indoor tennis facilities. I remember what the curtains were like that separated the courts. That's what I still don't like tennis. The courts, I remember sort of having the balls roll out and shoving them back under the little curtain and sort of what it smelled like back there. It's not a bad memory. It's just I remember the park in the summer where they played and I would go and be the only one wander around the park by myself.
So was it hard when you started having, 4 kids obviously there, when the siblings started to interact with each other in the natural way that siblings do, fighting, it's like average once an hour or something like that, the siblings fight? Were you like, oh my gosh, is this okay? Is this normal?
Yes, I did find it, and I still do. I still probably overreact. It took me a lot of learning to step back from that, and I've sometimes thought that's because I didn't have siblings myself, but I've talked to other parents, and I think it's just hard to watch your kids be cruel to each other, and I've finally gotten to a point where I can let the basic stuff, they just come in, and it's like, they come right in with, why are you wearing that? Why are you eating that? They just, they sort of walk in from after school and turn on whoever's there and just, and you're just like, why are you approaching your sibling in that way? But I don't know, because they do. And if I leave them alone, they stop. And if I get involved, they don't stop. So I've just summed up my advice for older siblings. My advice for people with younger siblings is a little different. But.
So with older siblings is kind of step out of the way, take the audience away.
Yeah, either you take the audience away or you take them away. Like it's all of them. All of you stop it. Both of you stop it. Both of you, my kids share rooms, so we can't necessarily split them up by sending them to their rooms, but you go in that room and you go. So, but it has to be equal, because I find so often that, it feels like what's wrong, like whose fault it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're standing in the kitchen and one of your children is sort of innocently in your mind sitting there eating potato chips and watching a movie on their iPhone, and the other one walks in and says, "Why are you eating that? That movie's stupid too." You're like, turn on the one that just did that, right?
Yeah.
What
yeah.
you don't know
Yeah.
is, what happened 10 minutes ago, or just.
Yeah.
So
or at the bus stop.
You never really know what's going on.
So with older siblings, try to like step out of that judgment role. Step out of that judgment role, and that's kind of a relieving advice, actually. Yeah. It's like kind of chill out, take a back seat a little bit.
Yeah, the greatest that I talked to a ton of people for writing that chapter, because God knows I do not feel like an expert in sibling rivalry. And one of the best things that was said to me was just, the time to intervene is either never or when they start annoying you.
Mm-hmm.
Like not that you're upset at the way they're treating each other. If they're annoying you, then it's, cut it out, or okay, fine, nobody gets to watch TV or whatever it is. But it's not, it shouldn't be about their exchange so much as it is
about protecting
you.
Protecting your needs and what's going on for exactly. So then, if that
but when they're little, you don't
when they're
start
little,
that way. Yeah, I mean, when they're little, you have to teach them. I mean, you want to teach them to, to work out their differences in ways that aren't physical, and it's going to be physical more often than you want. And everybody, I've talked to a lot of people who are surprised by just how much shoving and nipping and kicking and the phrase "don't stop licking your brother." I mean, I don't know why we have to say that as often as we do in our house. Yeah, so when they're little, it's much more about trying to get them to work it out and give them tools to talk to each other differently, or to understand each other, or to listen to each other. But then when they're older, they may not use those. You just sort of have to know, well, they've got them. And if it gets really bad, presumably they'll resort to
I find myself I found myself translating a lot. What your sister's trying to say is this,
right?
And what she said is this. This is what she's saying. I'm translating the unskillful language into here's some skillful language. This is
right.
Hear it, right? And then kind of being.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I think your sister's upset that you're playing with her friend without her, or whatever. Is there any way you guys could include her? And if not, maybe, could you include her later, or could you do something later, or could you explain why, I don't know. That's not the best example, because it's sort of taking sides, which you don't want to do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's very much, I think that Beth would like to play with her friend by herself, but I'm getting that you would like to play with them. And how can we work this out? I mean,
just acknowledging that problem in a skillful way. Yeah. That's exactly what we talk about in mindful parenting. So this is this leads us really beautifully into we're kind of galloping around your book, I guess, but into discipline. And I was very happy to read the discipline chapter, because you started off really wonderfully. You started off talking about how over 1,000 people responded to this survey, saying that people hate enforcing rules. They don't want to, I hate punishing my child, even if I know it's for their own good. And it's this idea that we don't question this idea that we have to sort of punish our children, right? Like that seems to be the given, but you push back against that given by talking to Dr. Kenneth Ginsburg. So let us know what he said, because I love this so much. Yeah,
it's really interesting. I don't know that I would have had a discipline chapter. It wasn't really on my radar as an individual topic. I mean, to me, it fits. I mean, discipline is an interesting word, because like you said, it can be punishing, or it can be, it's teaching, and it's a noun, right? Like we need to have discipline. We have to learn discipline. As adults, we need to discipline ourselves, not to yell at our children often. So we're, our toughest moments are when we're disciplining ourselves to discipline them in an appropriate manner. So I don't know that I would have put it in I just sort of thought it came with chores and with everything else. But everybody it was such a consistent response. I hate enforcing the rules. I hate making my kids do chores. I hate making my kids, do this. It was this, I hate making, I hate forcing, I hate insisting, I hate punishing. So I sort of reached out to Ken, who's this lovely expert and has a couple of books on his own, and just a really special guy. And I sort of expected him. He's usually very sympathetic. He's usually like, oh, yeah, that really is tough. And this time he was like, oh, no, discipline's not hard because discipline's what you're doing all the time. And I was like, oh, no, that didn't make me feel better. Discipline is teaching. I mean, you think the stuff that we are thinking of as discipline, the punishing, the grounding, the moment when your kid has spent $333 on in-app purchases on iTunes, that's the tip of the iceberg. Is it all the other stuff where you're teaching them, talking to them about why you make the choices you make and what you want them to do and the sort of affirmative, how to resist the in-app purchases and how to moderate your internet time if that's what you're talking about, just all of that. He said that's all discipline. So you can't think of it as just having the chores and setting them up and teaching them to do it. That's all discipline. The moment when you have to punish them for not doing that, if that's the way that you've gone in your house, that's just like the tip of the discipline iceberg. So he said you sort of have to think of it as like this. I'm gesturing, which doesn't help people who are listening to us. But you have to think of it as this continuum of teaching and explaining and then stepping back to see how they do on their own and then coming back and teaching and explaining again. And when you think of it that way, even the moment when you sort of have to enforce the consequence, or maybe you have to raise your voice because this is an appropriate moment to show your kid that they have upset you or disappointed you. It doesn't feel as bad when you think of it as sort of all part and parcel of the same thing.
Yeah. That root of the word disciple, someone who's learning or disciplinist is that teaching. So it's all part of that. So in those tough moments, we're teaching things still in that moment. It's a continuum of that teaching. So, and you talk about like how we're modeling personal responsibility and guiding our kids towards self-control. And you talk about beautifully about self-discipline, right? And trying to get ourselves to that place where we're modeling a skillful response or a good response. So
the thing about discipline is it doesn't happen when you're like, your kid doesn't typically screw up when you've just stepped out of an hour-long yoga and you're feeling warm and patient and everything in your day has been going well. Because, of course, they often are feeding off of us. And so, no, the moments when you're called upon to do these hardest decision things, the times when the worst thing has happened or you've made it, those are invariably at the end of like some long, horrific day of other, it's really hard not to react rather than respond, not to sort of, go straight to, often a lot of us were raised in sort of more of an authoritarian, a my way or the highway kind of household. And even if you weren't necessarily, that was kind of the response when we were kids. It typically, the idea back then was like parents thought they knew what to do. And the thing was, if Hunter screws up, I punish Hunter and then she doesn't screw up again. And that was pretty much the end of it. Like that's what they were expected to do. And they typically did it. So it's really easy to fall back on that when you're feeling stressed. And it's just sort of the go-to rather than whatever might be more appropriate, whether it's, okay, I'm really angry at you right now. You head for your room and I'm heading for mine. It's not like I'm sending you to your room. It's like we're splitting up for a minute while I think about what we do next because this is really bad, which is way different than, go to your room and wait for me. Maybe how some of us experience, I think, the same kinds of moments.
You just gave me a flashback. It's like my heart's pounding.
Yes, exactly. But it's funny because it's the same. Like you're sort of asking the child to do the same thing, but the message is just different. There, it's what you have done is very, very serious, whatever it is, and so serious that I can't even react to you without going and thinking about what the right thing to do is. also because I'm really angry. And, and that's also a great demonstration. I'm really angry. And so instead of doing the thing that immediately springs to mind, whether it's physical or yelling or anything else, I'm going to go over here and you're going to go over there. Like that's what you would like them to do for their brothers and sisters, right? So you're setting that example for them.
Yeah. Yeah. You're modeling in every moment. And that's a really intense, natural consequence, really, of something like if a child has done something really intense, if my parent had to say, I am so angry right now that I need to take a break from you and like go for a walk or go breathe or whatever. And we will come back and talk about this later.
Yeah.
That's sinking in. Like, it's not like there's a,
and it doesn't feel like it, but our kids care what we think. They want to please us. They're sort of naturally inclined to want to please us, even as much as they act as though they're not. Like when we are that upset, no matter how cool they are acting, they are bothered. And if they're little, they're really bothered. So, honestly, sometimes when they're little, what you have to do is go giggle. Like, this is really serious what you have done with my lipstick on that toilet. And I'm going to go think of it because you have to go laugh. So those are the good moments. But yeah, then when you get to the big ones, it's the same deal. And then the other thing Dr. Ginsburg said that really sort of made me feel bad about even some of the real doozies, some of which I've already faced as a parent, some of which I have not yet, is look, you really want them to screw up on your watch. If they're gonna, I'll just give you an easier one. If they're gonna stay up all night and fail a test because they played Fortnite until 3:00 in the morning, you want them to do that. Well, ideally in middle school, but even in high school before college, right? Honestly, if they're gonna drunk drive and get caught, you want to do it while they live with you, and you can take away their car, and you can, and you can do all the things that you have to do at that point to get them to have a more serious and appropriate relationship with alcohol and driving and whatever else is going on. Mm-hmm. You don't want them to wait till they're college or adults when you don't even have a shot at helping and protecting them. So as hard as it is, one reaction at that moment is gratitude that you get a chance to help them learn to handle it. I'm not saying I would have that reaction, but
you try to come around.
Tuck that away.
I love that, though. No, that's a really profound message, though. You really want them to script on your own watch. I mean, that makes me think of it's similar, obviously nowhere, but my daughter's in a Montessori school at 11. And so she's in a class with 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. And what I think is so brilliant about what they do is that in that class, they give them a planner and they say, this is all the work you need to do for this week. Right. And this is a planner and this is how we do this. But they basically let them figure it out and fail and mess up and work through that whole process of organizing their own time when they're 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, which is like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. Like, this is something we need to do and mess up at in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, not when we're 18 and we're like, we have to get to Chem 102 at, University of Delaware, right? It's like, yeah, exactly. But you really want them to script on your own watch. I think that's really helpful. And you also said, Dr. Ginsburg mentioned that, it's not like this idea of our expectations, right? That like we tend to, he said that it's not if our child would do something that's over the top and infuriating, it's when. Yeah. So we need to expect that it's when. And you also talk about how generally our expectations are too high. Like we think like, and I see this with parents of little kids, we think like, okay, you know how to get yourself dressed now. You'll do it forever and ever and ever on your own, forevermore now, like
backtrack or whatever. What cracks me up, and I do this, I see it in myself, is that how long did it take me to learn that if the person checking me out at the grocery store is really, really nasty, for me to be nasty in return only adds to her unhappiness and mine, like only leaves me walking out that door feeling horrible. I would say I was at least in my late 30s by the time I sorted that one out, right? And yet, we think our kids should get that, well, yeah, I know, but maybe your friend was having a bad day and, you don't need to yell back at your brother or whatever. It's just like, no. I mean, some things we can say it and say it and say it and say it, and they are hearing us. They're just not either capable of doing it or they're just not doing it yet, right? I mean, different life stages too.
Yeah. Yeah. And we need to expect the repetition. And I love that you have another former podcast guest, Joanna Faber, in your book, who
Yes.
wrote How to Talk So Little Kids Will Listen, which I can't remember what episode number that is, dear listener, but you can find it. She's wonderful. It's a wonderful interview.
They were great.
The talking about, like if you know you're going to repeat yourself a bazillion times on this anyway, you might as well be repeating something that's skillful that they can learn. So rather than,
don't pull the
be such a
cat's
slob.
tail. Yeah,
Just like be gentle with the, or whatever it is, like putting that language in the positive, right? That's beautiful. I love the reminder that, yes, we are just going to have to repeat ourselves a lot.
Yes, and that's the thing about chores too. To just leap it willy-nilly into yet another chapter is that the helpful advice that I got around chores, and this was really all from parents who felt, who had kids who did chores, which I think is lovely. He said, look, there's two things here. There's whatever the chore is. You want the child to empty the dishwasher, right? And also you want them to do it without being reminded and with a pleasant attitude. And to the person on the other end of that conversation is like, yeah, forget the second one. Just let that go. You're going to have to remind them 250 times, and then they don't have to like it. They just have to do it. Just don't expect them to do it without being reminded. Not going to happen. Just not going to happen. Not. Mm-hmm. So remind them in 56 ways and just let that piece of it go. That's not your goal. So and that actually really had changed my relationship and my husband's relationship with getting our kids to do chores, just releasing the feeling that we had failed if they weren't remembering to do it on their own.
Yeah. It's not a reflection on us if they're not remembering to do it. They're just human kids that
they don't want to do it. I don't want to do it either.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, if I thought that if I didn't empty the dishwasher, eventually someone else would come along and do it for me. That may be why our Christmas tree is still up. I may be sort of thinking that somehow that's going to happen for me.
Don't believe them when they promise to feed the cat without you bugging them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they won't. But the chores are still an important thing too. This is,
it matters.
It matters a lot. It matters to people's success in life, and a lot of it really makes a big difference. Tell us more about what you learned about chores. We're going to give up thinking about a pleasant attitude. We're going to give up.
No, we just want them to do it. And there's a little bit of research out there that suggests that kids who do chores, especially if they start at a young age, they're generally more successful in a lot of ways, at school, in relationships, in later life, in early jobs. But we don't need that research. Really, we don't. Because you know that when your kid has another kid over for dinner and that kid gets up and clears their plate, that's much better than the kid who just sort of leaves their plate behind and walks away. I mean, that's, you don't want to raise the one that just, and you don't want to raise the kid who thinks that the dishes just waft their way into the dishwasher, or who's never cleaned a bathroom, or who doesn't know how to do those. You're raising the worst college roommate ever if you're, not doing some of that stuff. So, I mean, it's important for kids to learn to do this stuff. It's important for them to learn that making a house and a life work requires that you do some things that you don't want to do, which, can involve the dishes or the bed or the laundry or whatever. It's just, we all do it. And it's also, this sort of comes full circle to what we were talking about at the beginning with the sports and activities. I think that what happens when we don't give our kids any form of chores, when we don't expect them to help us with the very complicated work of having a household and feeding people and keeping things, clean and under control, everything begins to feel lopsided. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right that you should think of what's for dinner and shop for what's for dinner and, work to earn the money for what's for dinner and then cook what's for dinner. And then at the end of it, clean up after what's for dinner and put all the dishes back. And then you sort of get up the next morning and do it again. When you find yourself in that position, it doesn't feel happy. It feels wrong.
It's a recipe for resentment.
It is. It really is. And I think sometimes we don't even realize. And that's not saying don't ever cut your kid any slack or, don't ever do anything for your kid. It's just saying expect them to be a contributing part of your household. And honestly, you'll both be happier because it doesn't really feel good to be the person who's not contributing either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It helps them and it helps you. So we will repeat ourselves and we will insist and get these. And it's part of that discipline. Like if discipline is teaching, we're teaching them how to be adults.
Right. And you're hopefully teaching them that self-discipline, that they will do these things themselves when they get older. And again, I mean, how long was it before I figured out that I really was happier if I did the dinner dishes right after dinner as opposed to waiting until the next morning, when I'm a single person? I don't know, but I probably didn't do it right away.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, we think we just say it once and then they should know because we've learned that it's the right thing to do, but that's not the way it works.
That's not the way anyone learns. It takes us.
Yeah, there are like 6 soda cans, I realized, in one of my children, in the drawer. So 3 of my children share a bathroom, and one of them has a bathroom that she uses on her own. And this has to do with who's having to share rooms, and it's like a complicated equation of fairness, but it's considered fair in our house. And I went into her bathroom the other day, and there were 3 empty soda cans in a drawer in the bathroom. like seltzer cans, I guess. Or I was just like, they must have been seltzer or I would have been freaked out about ants, but still. Yeah. She's not saving them. It's not like that's her recycling drawer either. There's also a ratty tube of toothpaste. And I was just like, I'm not looking at this bathroom.
So we have all these things. We have these are our responsibilities, right? These helping our kids, teaching them to do chores, insisting that they do chores, teaching them through those tough moments and all of those things. And these are these things that help it make us happier as parents. But you also mentioned some of the things that are kind of, I like your mantras. One of them that I really appreciate was soak up the good, right? And this idea that, our brains are sort of wired to see the negative and see the problems. And I like that you invite us to lean into the things that are good and try to mark them and remember them.
That is truly life-changing. I mean, our minds they're designed to watch for the bad stuff, for starters. And also, lots of us, and I definitely count myself among this, we have this magical feeling that if we think of the thing and we worry about it, we are somehow preventing it from happening. So, we go down every disastrous road of, my child, this math worksheet is a catastrophe. She didn't finish everything. And that means, in 4th grade, she won't be promoted to the early 5th grade math. If you don't get to the 5th grade math, you don't do algebra earlier, and then you don't do geometry in 8th grade, and then you're not in honors math in high school, and you never get into
KJ,
college.
You're stressing me out.
See? Yeah. But that is the way that our brains just are naturally wired to work. There are all these great quotes attributed to a zillion different people that are basically like, I have endured a million terrible things, none of which ever happened. Because we have help, right? How many car crashes has your brain taken you through that you never actually had? If you can stop that cycle and start yourself with more of a things are good right now cycle. Like, this is a bad math worksheet, but here's my healthy child sitting at our kitchen table under our complete roof after a lovely dinner, in pretty much exactly the life that I'd imagined, where I have the child and the roof and the dinner. This is pretty great. 5 + 2 is still not 8, but that's okay. Even when you've got that sort of kid that's just like weeping in your arms because their friend has been truly horrible to them, if you can just take a little breath and go, this child that I love has come to me in this moment when they are unhappy. It's okay to feel happy about that, even while you're sort of holding the unhappy child. I mean, this is meant to be the meat of our lives. This is the sort of, it's a very dense time. There's a lot going on. There are a lot of people who need us right now. And that is both really, really hard and really lovely. And soak up the good is just an invitation to take your brain and remind it, remember that this is also really, really lovely.
So how do you do that for yourself, KJ? Like, how do you remember to appreciate, and how do you stay grounded, balancing writing and parenting and traveling for your hockey game, your kids' hockey games?
Well, I really have learned, so that's a bunch of questions. So when it comes to soaking in the good, I really have made a point of trying, and I don't know that I sort of set specific moments, although, well, you know what I did? I had a bracelet and I still have it. It says an ordinary day, because you know how that is. You get that phone call after which nothing will ever be the same. And I'm sure you've had that phone call, and we'll all have it again, whether it's a kid that's broken their leg or a relative that you've suddenly and unexpectedly lost. You get that phone call, and all you want back is that moment 10 minutes ago when you were frantic about what was for dinner and your kids were having a fight in the back seat. That was good. And so I have a bracelet that says ordinary day. And that's, when I look at it, it's a reminder. Reflect on this moment that you're going to wish you had back when things are not so great and ordinary. And
Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen teacher, he says to appreciate your lack of toothache. To recognize that there are all these things working for you right now that we're not.
And I have put up Post-its, and I have set phone reminders, and I have done a bunch of things sort of over the years to remind myself to take those little breaths. One that I don't recommend is that iPhone app that tells you, remember you're going to die every
oh my God.
6 times a day. I tried that, and I was like, this is not making me so good. And it keeps doing it right before I get on planes. And I don't recommend that one, but it works for some people. Okay. You can just search it. iPhone app that tells you you're going to die. It's out there. So I've set a variety I like Post-it notes. Those are a great way to do it. And at this point, it just kind of comes naturally to me to look at the signs. But that's a huge change for me. I did not embark in, if I'd embarked into this book as a happier parent, I probably wouldn't have written. I would have written a different book. This is the book I needed to sort of help me to find the joy in the family life that I wanted, but I wasn't having very much fun with.
Yeah.
And then as far as hockey trips go, I enjoy those by finding things I want to do on them. So we were just in Rhode Island, and there's a Korean fried chicken restaurant in Rhode Island that's like the best Korean fried chicken ever in the history of the world. And all week long, all I could think about was it's called Den Den Chicken.
Oh, I looked that up.
Yeah, it's so good. And all week long, it was like, and while I'm in Providence, at some point, I'm going to flake off from this hockey tournament. I'm going to get myself some chicken. And yarn stores and bookstores and chocolate stores. And I can tell you all kinds of small, fascinating little places to go in a zillion hockey towns across New England, and my kids know that's what they're in for.
So you take care of your needs. So part of what you're saying, I'm helping you out, but you've got my own life. I've got my own needs, and I'm going to take care of my needs too.
Yeah. If we're going on a road trip, I get to control the radio, and, I get to choose a lot of the destinations. We can go to Buffalo Wild Wings with your team some of the time, but some of the time you're going to do this with me. And it depends on the kids. Some of my kids really, thrive. They really want to go where they want to go try the new place. They want to go do those things. And then, other times, and sometimes it's the same kid, just different times, they want to go with the team. And sometimes I just throw them in with another parent.
Yeah.
Go do something else for a little while.
And do you have any kind of regular practices in your life, in your daily life at home, that help you kind of stay sane and grounded and appreciating the good stuff? I mean, besides your Post-it notes.
Yeah, besides my Post-it notes and my bracelet, which I do still wear. I did have a meditation practice for a while. I'm not doing it right now. Right now I've been doing the 30 days of yoga with Adrienne. I don't know if you know.
Oh, no, I have heard about Adrienne.
Okay, Adrienne is great, and she does a free 30 days of yoga at the beginning of every year. And last year I didn't make it, but this year I'm on day 21, I think, and I'm hopefully going to make the whole 30. And then I'm hoping to make that a regular practice because it's got a very meditative aspect to it.
Yeah, moving meditation. Good for you. Good for you. Awesome. Wow. So we didn't get to screen, so maybe another time.
Screens are really hard.
They're a tough one.
They're really hard, but it's going to be okay.
Buy your wonderful book. Actually, I feel like, it's interesting because as a podcaster, I get lots of books sent to me, and I've seen lots of whole books on screen time that are helpful. But I think that your chapter is very helpful. So go buy KJ's book about how to be happier. So you were not so happy, and these tips and these mantras, they brought you around to the other side. You're feeling more content, appreciating the mama life.
Much, much more. I mean, I will say my kids also got older. That helps.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Are we kidding? Or it can. I mean, sometimes I talk to people who say that, they're not enjoying their time with their teenagers. And this is a book that's really geared towards parents of kids from like 4 to 16. So, it's that middle of your family life. Yeah, but definitely, I did end up happier. I don't think it's just that they're older or just that, other circumstances have changed. I think I'm just sort of genuinely going to own it. I'm actually more able to be happy even when things aren't great.
Awesome. Yeah. It helps to figure some stuff out. You feel like, whoosh. And then that helped that ruminating mind too. You're like,
yes, the ruminating mind.
I don't have to figure everything out. I don't have to jump in with these siblings, and you're done, all that stuff. So this has been so much fun, KJ. I really enjoyed talking to you. I've really enjoyed how to be a happier parent. I think it's wonderful. I think it's a great contribution to,
thank you.
What you've done is a great contribution to our conversation, to helping people stay grounded when, the whole world turns upside down. There's so much pressure on us. What you're doing is really taking off a lot of that pressure. And I think that's a real gift to be able to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, that is the hope. We've got the cards that we've been dealt. It'd be nice to change some things about society and culture and the way we approach parenting. But meanwhile, let's do right by ourselves so that we can also do right by others.
Awesome. So if people want to reach out and talk to you about the book, where can they find you?
KJDell'Antonia.com is the easiest way. I've got an email. It's not weekly. It says it's weekly. If you sign up for it, it's really not. Sometimes it's monthly. It's sporadic. But if you're on that list and you reply to it, you always get me directly. And I am on social media in a variety of ways, although in pretty light ways, because I'm using my social media a little more mindfully at the moment.
Good for you. Well, yeah, this has been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. So thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. Don't you love KJ? I love her. The way she says discipline is about teaching. Obviously, I really resonate with that. And it's really, this message about chores is coming in from a lot of places, and KJ says it so well. So you should definitely check out her book. It's wonderful. And if you want more resources right now, you can join the Mindful Parenting free training course. Join thousands of other mamas and papas. You can join too at mindfulparentingcourse.com/free training. And speaking of papas, when you join the full Mindful Parenting course, getting all the support with coaching calls that you can join for years afterwards, your partner can join for free too. And so we have had moms and dads together on the coaching call, which is super fun. I love that. And that is opening for registration. Registration will just be open for 7 days, so hop on it. It's at mindfulparentingcourse.com. It's really pretty life-changing course. It's going to change everything, I promise. So if you put what you can put into it, you will get that out. So that's at mindfulparentingcourse.com. Check it out. Then that's it. I guess that's all I need to say to you. It's been such a pleasure to share this time. Thank you for putting me in your ears, and I really appreciate this connection we have. And I can't wait to connect with you again here on the Mindful Mama podcast. And feel free to reach out. I love, love, love getting emails. Hunter at mindfulmamamentor.com, and I love when you share. All those things just make me feel amazing. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm so glad you're here. So glad you're here, part of this growing tribe. The Mindful Mama tribe is growing and growing. So it's all part due to you. And I really appreciate that. I'm glad we get to connect. Wishing you a beautiful week. Namaste.
Are you frustrated with parenting? Do you want to practice conscious, compassionate parenting, but you don't know how? It's not easy, and there's no roadmap for this. Until now. I'm Hunter Clarke-Fields, creator of the Mindful Parenting course, and I know how frustrating it is because I've been there. I struggled as a young mom, and when I found myself yelling and triggered by my child, I knew there had to be a better way, and there is. Mindful parenting is different from other parenting trainings. They don't tell you that all of that good advice is as good as useless when our internal stress response is triggered. Mindful parenting teaches you research-based tools and practices to reduce your stress response so that you can respond rather than react. And it teaches you exactly what to say so that you can create willing cooperation from your child. You can learn more and enroll at mindfulparentingcourse.com, and you can join us for a free live training coming up soon where you'll learn why your kids don't listen to you, how your brain undermines your parenting, and how to create cooperative kids without losing your temper. Sign up now at mindfulparentingcourse.com/free training. That's mindfulparentingcourse.com/free training. I'll see you there.